We often depict global supply chains as starting with workers in the factories or farms and mines, with these suppliers linked to brands and retailers. Above these brands and retailers sits the financial sector, which can take the form of private equity funds, shareholders, or other forms of investment. And we know that this entire system of global supply chains is facilitated and fortified by government regulations, the rules and trade policies that structure these supply chains for the benefit of those at the top. We know that these investors and these lead firms squeeze down on the supplier factories. And we know as well that in that squeeze, there's a pulling or sucking up of value from the workers to the top of these supply chains. At the bottom of these supply chains, in countries such as Bangladesh, workers currently earn 54 cents per hour, while at the top, the head of Amazon earns $8 million per hour for a company that currently has a market valuation of $2.4 trillion. The story might appear limited to a story of formal sector workers in these global production networks generating the wealth of those at the top. However, if we look further, we see that workers in informal employment, in both the formal and informal sector, provide the fundamental part of wealth extraction for those at the top. Let's look at the factory workers themselves and the different levels of informality of employment in terms of abuse and profit grabbing. In many factories, a segment of the workforce could be considered formal in that they have some form of work contract, earn a set wage, and receive benefits. Yet it's important to emphasize that while nominally formal, in addition to receiving below subsistence wages, these workers are squeezed in many other ways, notably work intensification through the production quota system, gender-based violence and harassment, unsafe buildings, and toxic work environments. Another level of informality exists within the same factory system, where we have an abundance of workers with no contracts, no benefits, and part-time or otherwise contingent work. In some factories, especially second and third tier suppliers, most or even all workers might be contingent. This layer of workers in informal employment are subjected to even more intense abuse and value capture. My research has also shown that due to the below subsistence wages received by factory workers, many workers earn extra income when they are not working in the factory, by washing clothing, selling products, that is, by doing work in the informal sector. Some have indicated in my survey research that they have engaged in sex work to cover their basic living needs. Outside factories, there are often networks of informal home workers who produce goods for factories with raw materials given to them by the factories. In India, for example, home workers might do the embroidery on a segment of fabric that is later incorporated into the final clothing product. Yet the story doesn't end here. If we go further, we see that informal migrant workers in the global north actually help to subsidize these factory workers. How does this happen? Well, research has shown that in many cases, brands and their supplier factories locate production in regions of the global economy in which families receive an especially high level of remittances from workers abroad. The factory owner pays their workers below subsistence wages on the assumption that these workers and their families will survive because of the remittances. As a result, the remittances sent by workers to their families facilitate wealth capture received by those at the top of global supply chains. And the story doesn't end here. Where do the workers in these factories shop? They do not go to the formal sector supermarkets or department stores. Rather, they go to the informal market, where street vendors earn a below subsistence income, which results in products being sold at below market value, whether it's food or clothing or even services. The below subsistence income of market and street vendors for products and services sold to factory workers who earn below subsistence wages is another part of this system. It is another form of subsidy that contributes to the enormous accumulation of wealth at the top. So where does this all leave us? This encompassing picture of the ways in which layers of workers in informal employment in both formal and informal sectors in both the global north and south all feed into the value extraction in global supply chains and point to possible alliances across sectors of workers. If there is to be any possibility of transforming the power relations in global supply chains, all of the workers in different forms of work, formal and informal, have to come together and exert their collective power to transform these supply chains into networks of production that value work and the dignity of workers.